Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Joni Young, and today I'm going to show you how to paint Looking Through the Secret Door on a 16 by 20 canvas. I'm just going to wet it down a little bit with water and a large blending brush. This is one of my new brushes. I'm just trying it out for the first time today, and it's pretty nice. If it is still holding up in the next few weeks or so, then I'll post a link below recommending it to you guys. So I'm going to get started now using a little bit of Cadmium Yellow Cool. I'll use a little bit of white, and I'm just going to start building up the light in this painting in the background. So we're going to work background first and then come in with the shape of our door. So I'm just brushing all different directions just to get that paint blended around there. And then I'm going to use a little bit of my neon orange and neon yellow warm. And we're really going to create a nice golden sunlit effect here. Without washing my brush off, I'm going to push into those yellows and orange, a little bit of luminous neon rose, and I'm just going to pull up and down, leaving those streaks, and this is going to be for the texture on the door and the pattern on the door. Now I'm just going to start coming in and creating a simple oval. You can make yours round or oval, doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to freehand this. If you guys feel more comfortable with sketching yours out first or tracing, that's just fine. You could use like a dinner size plate, that would work really well. And I'm going to come over now with a little bit of my blue. I've got a little bit of black. I'm going to use a few different colors for the darkest contrast in this painting. Very rarely am I going to use just straight black. I try to use a bit of black here and there, but all of a sudden it just looks really dull. So what I like to do is add a little bit of my neon rose and cobalt blue to my black, and then that really intensifies it and it makes the colors look really beautiful together. So give that a try, guys, instead of using just straight black, and you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to work on the shapes of the doorway and the door itself, mixing in little bits of blue, and I've also got a bit of sap green on my palette. Look below this video in the description, guys, for the full list of colors and brushes, canvas I'm using today. But you really want to have it darkest around the outside of the door and the doorway right there, just because we want to keep that nice, beautiful contrast and that light outside that's really inviting. And of course that sunset, those sunset colors are hitting the door as well, casting that light onto the door. And to make the door stand out here, I'm just pulling up and down again. Then I'm going to go into a little bit of black, blue. I've got burnt sienna. I've added some burnt sienna to my palette, which can be really beneficial in a painting. It's nice and rich and has a beautiful deep auburn tone to it. And I'm just, you can see how it's a lot more fun to use color for your darkest parts of your painting. So that's why I like to add those colors to my black. And sometimes you don't even need black at all. You can make a really dark color with sap green, red, and blue. Variations will change somewhat depending on what green and blue and red you use. So I'm going to come in and around the door and the doorway and just keep building up the contrast and the setting here, and then we'll come in with the next step. The next step is going to be just in a few moments, and what I'm going to do is make sure this painting is all dried off at this stage. Then I'm going to start coming in with my yellows and my orange for the door, and there's going to be some patches in there that are going to be lighter and brighter. And then there's other areas where it's kind of in shadow, but still a really warmth to the shadow areas where the sun's not fully hitting it. So I'm going to mix my rose, yellow, and white. It almost makes kind of a tan or yellow ochre sort of a color. And I've got a flat brush now, and you can use, you don't have to use a flat brush. You could use a Filbert brush for this if you want. And I'm just going to create a a light layer, a little ring right here. This will make the doorway look 3D, three-dimensional. And then I'm gonna add some more of that rose, burnt sienna around the outer side here. Now, of course, this is where the sun's gonna be, and we're gonna have all those beautiful sun rays, so it's gonna create that beautiful golden glow there right on the right side. I'm going to take my colors, those same colors mixed with a little bit of turquoise, and start building up the shape a little bit more where it's going to be darker and more in shadow up here. We'll have some more contrast. Now taking some white turquoise and a little bit of sap green, a little bit of yellow, just any kind of bluish grayish color. And this is just with a bit of water and my flat brush, like I said, just to create sort of a flagstone path here, or some kind of stone little patio or path right in here. And I'm just gonna push, drag, and slide my brush around. Nothing too detailed, it's just very patchy, blocking in color here. I'll brush over it a little bit, making the right side a little, or the left side, sorry, darker eventually when we start adding our trees and a little bit more shadow in there. And this is just the first stage here, and then we'll begin the next step. And at this point, I'm not really worried if I go over the circle or the oval doorway, because I know later on when I'm all done, I'm gonna make sure that everything's crisp and clean and it looks like we're in the foreground and everything outside of that door is in the distance and in the background. Coming in with black and a little bit of cobalt blue, anything to make it really, really dark. I'm gonna create the separation, have a really skinny line between the two areas here. I'll be adding a few lines for the door as well. And later on, I will be adding a little bit more cobalt blue to the lines. I will thin them out and make them a little bit skinnier. So if you're gonna paint along with me, guys, save yourself a step or two by keeping your lines on the thinner side, unless you want your door to look like it has more gaps in between, or maybe even some ironwork on the door. But I prefer the thinner lines myself. So I'm gonna now work on the shadow contrast a little bit more. We can see there's just a little bit of light peeking through here, so it's not gonna be solid, it's gonna be gradation, it's gonna gradiate from light to dark. So that's what I'm working on right now, just adding a little bit of a burnt sienna tone, a little bit of yellow, orange. All my warm tones are going to be the yellow, the orange, the burnt sienna, and that luminous neon rose. Now, any neon colors that I'm using, if you're brand new to my channel, I mention this because I get so many questions about what brand I'm using, and I use Holbein luminous neon heavy-bodied acrylic paints. And I'll try to leave a link below. I know that they're always out of stock on Amazon. That's in Canada. They could be a little bit tricky to find. And I hope they're in stock soon, because I'm running out and I'm getting sad. I don't want to run out of my favorite paints. Anyways, I'm going to come in now, and this time I'm adding, I didn't wash my brush out, but I picked up a little bit of black. So we're really going to start coming in with these dark lines now. 3 to 5 lines, I guess, depending on how big your door is. So that's going to depend on the size of the canvas you're using. You could paint this on any size canvas that you want. You can paint it on a square, any size of rectangle. So don't think that you have to absolutely have this same size canvas. Keep in mind, if you're working on a smaller canvas, then you're going to want to use smaller brushes and you'll need less paint. So it's just going to be the same colors, same technique, just on a smaller scale, and vice versa if you're working on a larger canvas. I think this would be really awesome as a mural. Don't you guys think that would look really cool? Leave a comment below if you think this would be really fun to do as a mural. If I had the wall space, I would definitely do this because I'm pretty stoked with this painting. It's very inviting to me, and it's got that Lord of the Rings Hobbit look to it, and in fact that really did inspire this. I didn't make this up out of my head. This is it was intuitive after I finished the door, and then I decided to add all the flowers, and then I took the colors in my own direction, but it definitely is Lord of the Rings Hobbit inspired, and there's lots of different reference photos you can find with Lord of the Rings Hobbit inspiration on Pinterest and well, lots of places. But you can see how I'm really coming in here, saturating the door up now with my neon yellow warm. And at this point, it's really thick. I'm using only a bit of water. Now I'm going to take my neon orange. I know looking at that, it actually looks like it's neon red, but it's not. It's a beautiful neon orange, again by Holbein. And I'm mixing that with a little bit of that neon yellow warm. So together, this is going to give us that beautiful, rich, reddish sunset tone to the wood. And I'm not going to make the door completely the same color. So there's some areas that are going to be brighter from where the sun's really hitting it, like I mentioned. And then below and above, it'll be a little bit more of that orange. And then as it goes down to the bottom, it'll get darker, and the same with at the top of the door. After adding a few more highlights in there, remember keeping it patchy, that was the luminous yellow warm with the white. I'm now going to start building up the top of the door, and I play around with this a little bit because I wanted to see if I could get away with a little bit more blue, possibly a bit of violet up here. But I accidentally picked up some of my orange that had a bit of white in it up here, so I'm gonna balance that out and correct that. And I'm going to take a little bit more blue now and kind of go over that. I want there to be a separation from the wall or the background. So I'm going to see if the blue is dark enough. If not, then I'll add a little bit of black in with it. And I want to add a little bit of cobalt blue to all of the dark areas here that I went over in black, so these little lines, and I pushed a little bit too hard, making them a little bit thicker than they should be. I mean, it looks fine, but I don't want it to kind of look like a gate, right? I don't want it to look like those are metal bars or anything, so I need to adjust that. So what I can do is go over part of it or gently scumble off some of that blue. But I'm going to take some black now and come back to that in just a moment. I've let that blue paint set there for a little bit, and it is a little bit too light, so I have to adjust that with some black. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit of my neon orange. The orange mixed with a bit of black and blue will make a nice dark brown color, and this is the beginning stages. Of course, I'm going to add some more color to the bottom. We're going to have that beautiful foliage spilling over the edge with the flowers, jewel tones, a little bit of turquoise. The one color I didn't use in this painting was phthalo blue, and I usually use phthalo blue. It's like my go-to, phthalo and cobalt or ultramarine blue, but I found I didn't really need it in this painting. I didn't miss it, and you guys can definitely use whatever variations of these colors I'm using today. So don't worry, if you don't have the Holbein neon paints, if you don't have neon paints at all, you can still paint this. Just use whatever colors you want for your flowers and that you have, pinks, reds, purples. And I've got a color mixing video that I'll try to remember to leave a link for below. If I don't remember, go into or scroll through on my channel, playlists, acrylics for beginners. I've got a whole playlist there, so there's lots of how-to and top tips, brushes, blending and mixing paint colors. I've got so much info for you guys. I'm going to work a little bit more on the glow of the wood. So here, adding some more burnt sienna, neon orange, as well as the door, and just scumbling around. I'm using a few different brushes. So I've got a few Filberts I'm using today, a few flat brushes. I'll be using the round brush and a few, did I mention mop brushes? I wonder if I'm repeating myself. I've got a few mop brushes that I'm using too. Again, everything will be listed below in the description of this video, guys. So if you miss it during this video, check below. And if there's anything that I've forgotten or you're not sure about, leave a question or comment below. I love hearing from you guys. So I'm going to come in and start adding some more rich color down here, that beautiful cobalt blue. I'm going to mix a little bit of my luminous rose with the blue as well. I just love those two colors with the golden peachy orange tone that we've got in this painting. I think it's really complementary, and that is what helps. That and the beautiful sun rays really help to draw our eye, and it makes this painting appealing. I think when you have strong color, complementary colors in a painting and a pretty scene like this, and it feels inviting, it feels like the door's open, just calling for us to go out there and explore. And you've got the sun rays. I think this is just going to make a beautiful painting that somebody will enjoy. So I hope you guys want to paint along and gift this to somebody, or just paint it for yourself. I may be doing a whole theme, a series of themed paintings like this with different scenes through the door, maybe different types of doors. You could also help me out by leaving a comment below, letting me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. And I'm going to continue adding the color around here now. Sometimes I'm using a little bit of white with my blue just to change that tone up a little bit and create some softer looking, paler, more powdery blue shadows. But now I've got a Filbert brush. I believe this is a number 9. It could be a number 9 or a number 12. Just use whatever size you have that's going to work best for this area. This is so pretty. Look how it just glows and pops off the canvas. So that's because I'm using complementary colors against that peach. So cobalt blue, a little hint of turquoise, and mostly white. So by doing that, we're creating another type of light in the sky. Very complementary. This could be some clouds with a sunset. It could be a little bit of blue sky, turning to the warm sunset, a little bit of blue sky left. It just works really, really well in this painting. And so all it is, if you don't have these colors, you could try mixing a little bit of pink blue, and white. That'll get you a, but use more white than the pink and the blue, of course. You want the ratio to be like 80-20, so more white than any color. And you'll get a nice complementary pop of color happening there in the sky by using those as well. So I've got black, sap green, and my Filbert brush. And you could use the flat brush too if you wanted for this. I'm just going to start the line here for the base of where we're going to have all those little trees and bushes and foliage. I want it to kind of spill over onto this flagstone path and kind of start to work its way up the left side. Now don't worry if you go over your little entryway there, the doorway, it's okay. We can cover that up after. Acrylic paint is really forgiving. It's nice. So if you catch it right away, you can take it off. If it's dry and you can't, you can always cover it up. So I'm going to continue along here, just working out the shape and composition a little bit more here for the background and what I want to see through this doorway. I'm going to water down my brush, scumble, and gently pull off some of this paint, making it look a little bit paler and a little bit more see-through. I just want to soften it a little bit because this is outside. It's further away. It's not super far away, but it should be a little bit softer in tone than the strong contrast we have inside where we're standing, because otherwise you're going to have a competition and it's not going to be balanced. It's going to be hard to look at and it will be less inviting. So you want to have things that are a little bit further away that you're looking out at softer. So I'm just going to push and smush around that paint a little bit just with a damp brush, and then I'm going to go right into my green gold. I'm going to start tapping, and this is a really beautiful color, green gold. If you don't have it, this is actually, if you're wondering, it's by Artist Loft and it's high viscosity. If you don't have this, you can take cadmium yellow, warm or cool, take a little bit of black and mix the two together. Now, depending on which yellow you're using, it'll change the hue a little bit, but it'll be pretty darn close. And yeah, a lot of people don't know that you can make green by mixing yellow and black together, but you can, and you'll get a really nice olive yellowy green. So I'm going to just incorporate this, adding thin worked out layers. So what I mean when I say worked out is I'm just kind of dry brushing, scumbling around the remainder of the paint that's in my brush, which is hardly anything. And sometimes that's all you need. It just gives you that perfect amount and it creates a little filter. And I'm just going to use this brush right now to start coming in with some trees, and then I'll be switching over to my round brush because it can be a bit difficult and hard to work this brush for skinny branches and tree trunks. So it's a little bit too hard to control. I'm having a little bit of a difficult time even though I'm using the edge. So I will do a few like this, and this is just first with my sap green and black and green gold. Then I'll be switching over to got my little round brush here. I'm going to take I ran out of my burnt sienna, and I don't want to stop to pour some more out because I'm very impatient and I'm excited while I'm painting. So I'm just going to see if I can make that color by taking what I've already got on my palette. So I can use my green, neon orange, a little bit of black if I need to. But I think just the green and the orange together make a really nice dark brown, almost burnt sienna look. And this works just fine for creating these tree trunks. So I'm going to continue along, adding another tree that kind of reaches over to the far right. I'll add some branches, some smaller branches. I just want like a variation of different sizes. Nothing too big though. This is in the distance and I don't want to overpower this painting too much. So I'll continue to do this, and then I'm going to use a really fun brush. It's a makeup brush, you guys will see in just a minute, and I use that for my mop brushes to create the softest, most perfect looking bushes and foliage and leaves. All right, so here's my makeup brush that I'm using as a mop brush. This one's actually an angle mop. It came in a set that I got on Amazon. They're beautiful brushes. I've used them for months and months and no hairs ever fall out. If you make sure to take care of your brushes and clean them properly, they should hold up a lot longer. So don't leave your brushes in water, guys, or sitting in paint. I'm tapping in. I don't get my brush wet, like don't get any water on it first. If you're wanting to make bushes, you just want to go straight to the paint. So choose the colors you want, and I've got more green gold in my brush than anything. I've got a little bit of sap green, a little bit of black maybe, but I'm just going to tap sparingly. I don't want anything to look too solid. I want to see that beautiful sky that we have back there. So I'll just do a little bit more here, and then I'll start adding some highlights. I'll take a little bit of titanium white just to tint with those greens, and we'll change up the tone and the hue a little bit and make everything look a little softer. Now I'm taking a little bit of green gold, neon orange, and white. You can use any color you want here, any neon yellow, neon orange, white, just so this looks highlighted and separate in the foreground from the background. So I might have to do this a few times if I go back and add more foliage. But I want to mention that I did add a little bit of a shadow to the foliage on the far left side that you guys saw me do after. So that was just a little bit of black and sap green, just a little bit of that because it's a little bit more in shadow on the left side, and that will help with the contrast and make the highlight of the doorway stand out right there. I'm going to just come in here and scumble a little bit more of that same color I made, the green, gold, neon orange, and white, over our little stone path here. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit more contrast at the top here using black tinted with burnt sienna, blue, just any dark blackish color up there, and I'll do the same thing around the bottom right side. Then I'm going to wash my brush out and I'm going to come in with a little bit of a filter of neon orange and warm up the base of the foliage. I'm gonna just kind of pull and drag my brush, scumble it around the base. I'm gonna add some over top and just above the bushes up here. Just building up the saturation a little bit more in the sky where we're going to have the sun shining right there. I'm going to add a little bit more to the far right. The sun rays are going to cause a really beautiful glow right here. So I really want to play this up. I'll be adding a little bit more as the painting progresses. And I accidentally got a little bit too much there, so I'm trying to wipe it off. Okay, so I'm going to continue to build this up with that neon orange. I'm going to go over to the door, saturate that more with the orange. Once I'm done that, I'm going to switch over to a tiny, cute little mop brush. It's one that I got from my makeup set. And I'm going to start adding some more little bushes and highlights. And you can have more control using a smaller brush when you're trying to paint smaller foliage and bushes in your paintings. So make sure when you buy a brush, try to get 1 to 3 of the same brush in different sizes, guys. I know it's a little bit expensive to do that, but it's something you might want to work towards because it'll make your painting and learning to paint a lot easier. It's nice to have every size on hand when you need it. So here I am just adding a little bit more foliage. It puts those other bushes in the background. This builds up layer and makes the painting look 3D. So a bit of white with my green gold, a little white with sap green. You could pull some sap green in there if you want. And I'll add a little bit over the leaves on the trees as well. All right, now I've got more of my luminous rose and I'm gonna really play up on the color, have fun now creating my flair and bringing my flair into this painting, my personality. So I'm gonna really play up on the color using bold, strong jewel tone colors here, the neon orange, the luminous rose, the blue, and whatever else that I wanna add. And I encourage you guys to do the same. When using colors that invigorate you and make you feel something, if they excite you, you should definitely use them in a painting because you'll be a lot happier, and that's really how you become your authentic self, an authentic artist. That's how you make something your own, and that's what's going to make you stand out as an artist. So use what colors speak to you and find a way to make them work in a painting. Taking combination of blue and white, a little bit of black, I'm gonna just simply do a little oval here and then pull a little line off to the right off the canvas. And here we have our little doorknob. So I'm now gonna add shadows to make it look more 3D. I'll add a dark shadow around the left side of it and a little dab in the center and a very barely noticeable line around the right side. Pull off the handle right off to the canvas or right off the canvas. Now I'm going to take a little bit of white and just dab, dab, dab. Well, in just a second. I wanted to add a little bit more black there. Okay, now with a little bit of white, I'm going to tap, 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 create a bit of a texture. Maybe it's a crystal handle door. So you can have all those little dabs of white that will kind of make that seem like it's a crystal handle door. And you can paint any kind of handle that you want, make it your own. I personally love those glass doorknobs or crystal ones. I've got little ones all over my house for cabinets and whatnot. So I've got my round brush again here, clean, coming in and adding my flowers. Vibrant, bright, magenta flowers, neon pink, neon orange. I'll be highlighting them by taking a bit of my titanium white and just adding a little tap on each one of them. So just mixing the neon pink with the neon orange right here. Little tiny taps, very delicately, just on one side, facing the sun. I'll do a little bit like this. And then what I'm gonna do is go into my blue and luminous rose, and I'll continue along making them darker and darker as they get more towards the left side of the doorway or the entrance there. So without washing my brush off, I'm going to do this. This will just automatically give me that gradation that I want. So it goes like blue, purple, pink, and that coral color. So very, very pretty. And then I just want to dust out a little bit of that cool shadow color to the door, but I ended up, the brush stroke I used, ended up making it look like kind of how you would make a waterfall. So I'll be going back to that later and correcting that. I've got one of my large Filbert brushes here. This might be a 16. Again, use what is appropriate for the size of canvas you're using. And I'm going to start making my foliage here. You could use a mop brush too. I just wanted to use this brush because I haven't used it in a while. It's one of my favorite Filbert brushes. So I'm tapping in green, gold, sap green, maybe a little bit of black, any green that's really going to show up. You could, now once it's in the door and it's going to be in the dark, you could change your green over to a cool green for more of that cool shadow green. So you could take a little bit of phthalo blue, phthalo green, any green bluish tone you could use. I will be adding little hints of cobalt blue and even a little bit of turquoise there later on towards the end of the video. I'm going to just use green, gold, a little bit of white to highlight. So when you highlight, just apply a little bit on the top, leaving the underneath first layer of paint the original darker color. Then what I'm going to do is come in and start carrying over and continuing those flowers spilling over the edge just a little bit. So I'm going to do another layer or two of highlights just to make sure that it really stands out once it's dry. I may even have to come back to this tomorrow once it's all dry and add some more highlights because acrylic paint tends to dry darker, 1 to 2 shades darker. Especially if you're working on a black canvas or really dark canvas. But in this case, I'm just working on a white canvas. Okay, I've got another little mini mop brush here and I'm going to start working on some little flowers. I'm going to begin this time using my blue, cobalt blue or ultramarine blue here. And of course, use any colors that you want, make any kind of flowers that you guys want. And then without washing my brush off, I'm going to scoop up, and you see quite a bit I've got on there. And it's going to have a texture when it dries. It'll really look 3D and feel 3D. That's always really fun to do in these fantasy types of paintings. So I'll just continue along. It's going to be darker here in the doorway. Of course, it's not going to be as bright as it is outside. So keep that in mind. Don't add as much white. Use less white. And your flowers will look more in shadow that way. Okay, I think that looks really pretty like that, and I'm ready. I think I'm ready to start painting this sun. So with a clean little mop brush, I'm going to take straight titanium white, create a little circle first, and then I'm just going to start pulling and flicking for the first stages of my sun rays. Once I do this, I'm going to slowly and gradually start to add neon yellow warm and neon orange. I'll use a flat brush now so that I can get some better, straighter lines and edges for my sun rays here. If you use a Filbert brush or anything round, it'll be a little bit tricky. I mean, you can do it, it's just you're going to be fighting that roundness all the time and it might drive you nuts. So try to use a flat brush, especially if you're just beginning, but I find it's helpful for me. And I'm just going to sometimes come in with more of my color than the white, and sometimes I'll be coming in with a little bit more white. So every time I'm pulling and flicking, I'm taking off some of that titanium white in the middle, right in the sun, and that's supposed to be the brightest. So you'll notice that I go back a few times and reapply my white right in the center. Okay, so as you can see, it takes some time to build up the sun with all those sun rays, and especially if you're working wet on wet, you have to go back and reapply the white. You can take the time to dry it off if you want. Sometimes it's kind of nice working wet on wet and pulling those colors into one another, like to take advantage of that. Now I'm going to start adding some cool tones here, a little bit of turquoise and blue like I mentioned earlier. I'm going to play up on the color a little bit more on the left side of the door, and overall just add a little bit more color here and there. I'm also going to be doing a dry brush, filmy white, neon yellow, warm, mixed together, kind of watered down but not too watered down. So a thin mixture just scumbling over here. So you want it to be see-through, and the way to make it see-through is have a little bit of water in your brush. But if your brush is dripping, it's not going to work and it's going to look awful. So make sure that the ratio is more paint than water, but you really do need a little bit of water in there for it to work. So what this is doing is creating a hazy look, right? And it's also putting that in the distance. It makes it look farther away, bringing out the stages of this landscape and building up to the foreground where we're standing. So you don't want to put every single thing that's outside that door. You don't want to put that film, that dry brush over everything. I would stick to the bushes and the trees in the very background and leave the flowers as is, and of course the foreground. So I'll be adding a little bit more color here and there. It's pretty repetitive. You guys can see what I'm doing here, just adding that blue and a little bit of white with my luminous rose. I just really want to have that nice balance of complementary colors, so that's why I'm adding a little bit more blue here and there. And honestly, it's just, I'm having so much fun with this painting that I took a little bit longer to do this one because I was enjoying myself so much, and I'm super excited to do another painting like this with a different scene outside the door. So I want to let you guys enjoy watching the rest of this video. Thank you so much for joining me today again in my studio. Be sure to like this video. It helps my channel grow. Subscribe, of course, and look below the video for links that you might like to my Instagram, Facebook, Patreon, where you can help support my channel for as little as $5 a month and receive rewards. So I want to wish you guys happy painting. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all soon in my next video. Bye.